Disruption, a disturbance or problem that interrupts an event, activity, or process. If we're honest, we hate being disrupted because it messes up our plans, and we don't want anything to get in the way of them. Because in our eyes, well, it's perfect. In all reality, each and every day there are disruptions. There's interferences, things that we simply cannot control, and we hate it. But what if we can see the opportunities? What if we can see the good? The question is, how will you respond?
So I'm excited as it's been 5 weeks. I'm excited to give this message, and it's so interesting as I started thinking through, okay, Lord, what do you have for the new year? What's coming? And started diving into the Word and just going, okay, what do you want the church to hear? What do we need to hear as a church? And what do we need to hear as a culture? And so He led me to this. And what's so interesting about it is you hear in the video, we're talking about disruption. What's so interesting about it is He disrupted my life in the last 3 weeks in a kind of a crazy way. And so we'll talk through that in just a moment. But it's interesting as you start talking about those things, or at least studying the Word of God or diving into the Word about some specific topic, and then that specific topic happens in your life. Anyone been there? It's so interesting how God works that way, right? Because I obviously know He's trying to grow me in this area, and I'm not just speaking about it, but I'm actually living it. And so it's interesting. But we're going to dive into this 4-week series called Disruption. And if you're taking notes, I highly recommend take notes, whether that's in a notebook, whether that's on your phone, whatever it is, take notes, because I want us to look back in 4 weeks. I want us to see what we wrote at the very beginning of this series. So please take notes, engage with me. Don't be afraid to shout, be excited about it. It's a topic that we all need to discuss and hear. So this is a 4-week series called Disruptions. The idea about it is this. Don't we love to be disrupted? Isn't that something we enjoy? Don't we love when there's disruption that takes place in our life, as we know this is the way it's planned, this thing comes in the way? I know you guys are agreeing with me. You love it. It is something we enjoy. But here's the idea of 2019. 2019, looking ahead as it's the brand new year, the possibilities of disruption to take place in your life on a daily basis is probably at 100% or greater. 100% or greater. It's going to happen. It is something that will take place no matter where you're at, no matter if you're at work. This happens to me often in my office, doing my work. Someone comes into my office, asks a question, totally disruptive because I'm trying to get something done. Anyone else with me? You're trying to do your job, right? And it's not like it's a bad thing. I want to help the people. I want to be there for them. No problem. But it's interesting how often we get disrupted. It's interesting how often those things take place. And so it could be very frustrating, right? Anyone with me? Frustration with disruption? I got 3 hands. Really? Who's like, yes, there you go. Come on, let's do this. We're going to engage today. We're going to be excited about the new year. It's 2019. Get ready for disruption. Get ready for it. It's coming. But it will happen on a daily basis. So I'm thinking about 2019. What does this year hold for us? And many of you can say, well, I have some ideas, right? I have some clue, maybe a little bit about what's going to take place because I've planned it out. I know at this month I'm going here. I know at this month I'm going here. I know I'm going to work every day, right? I'm going this every day. But really, in all honesty, we have no clue because we don't know what today holds. We don't know what happens after church. We have no idea. The only one that knows is obviously Jesus. And so it's interesting when we think about these things. That's not saying don't plan it out. We got to be good stewards of what the Lord has given us. So plan those things. But we don't know what's really ahead. But what we do know is this, that there will be disruption, and there will be decisions that have to be made according to those disruptions, right? There will be decisions that have to be made according to the disruptions. And every time there is a disruption in your life, you have a decision to make in that moment. Every single time there's disruption, you have a decision to make. And it's going to depend on how we respond, right? My goal this series is to take a look at Paul's life, Paul the Apostle. A great man in history, right? For Jesus, for the gospel. This man, one man, did incredible things. But it did not come without disruption in his life. It did not come without chaos in his life. It did not come with many nights in jail or a stoning that took place. Any of these things. He had massive disruption that took place in his life. And every single time disruption hit, guess what? He made a decision. He had to make a decision. So the goal is, let's look at Paul's life and let's dive in a little bit to some things that he went through and how he responded. Because I believe this. I believe every disruption leads to an opportunity. We have an opportunity every single time we are disrupted in our life. We have an opportunity and we have a decision to make. So I hope everyone in here, as I was saying earlier, you're taking notes. I want you to do this with me. Actually, I forgot a pen. Anyone got a pen on them they can throw my way? Because I'm gonna do this with you. Thank you so much. No, I just took her pen, so that's terrible. But I want you guys to do this. If those of you taking notes, again, the title, Disruption, what does it do? That's the first week. What does it do? So go ahead and write that down. Second is this. Think of one disruption that has taken place from the very beginning of the new year, not even 6 days ago, or maybe right before it. Think of, when I say the word disruption, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Think about that. Write it down. If you're with me, write it down, type it on your phone, whatever it is. Write that one thing down that caused disruption. Maybe it's one word, maybe it's a whole phrase. I want you to write it down. And then after you're done writing it down, I want you to write down next to it, how did you respond? One word or two. How did you respond? What was the disruption? How did you respond? Just in the very beginning of the new year, what happened January 1st? Right out of the gate, was there massive disruption in your life? What's the one thing you're thinking about? Or maybe a couple weeks prior to that, that something took place. It was disruption. I'm going to write mine down. And I'm going to do this with you guys. And the reason why I asked you guys to write it down is because I want all of you to hold it up. So I'll know who's not writing it down and who's not involved. And Josiah count. Just kidding. I'm writing mine. You can hold up your phone if you want. So you wrote down, what was that number one disruption that took place in your life in the last 6 days or even prior to that? Something recent. And then next to that, you're writing, how did you respond? So I'm gonna show you mine in 1 second, and then I'm gonna explain it. You guys ready? Okay, let's do this together. If you have it written down or on your phone, just hold it up. You know, we're not gonna take a snapshot. No one's gonna look, right? None of those things. But hold it up with me. Okay. There you go. And here's what I want you to do. Keep holding it up. Mine's this. Mine is furnace. Who loves when their furnace breaks in the middle of winter? Isn't that amazing? Oh, I was like, I love this, Lord. This is so good. We're freezing in this house. I got 4 kids, right? I'm just like, what do we do? We're all cold. It's so amazing. I'm like, I love this disruption, Lord. How can I not love this anymore? It's amazing, right? Those things that take happen. Here's how I responded. Does everyone see that? Horrible. I responded horribly to the disruption that took place. So hold it up really quick. I want you to do this. Keep holding it up. And this is what I want you to say. You ready? I'll say it first, and you want to respond with me. There's opportunity in this. Can you say it with me? Let's do it. There's opportunity in this. One more time, loud. There's opportunity in this. Do you guys believe that? There's like 3. Do you guys believe this? There's opportunity in this. There absolutely is. Go ahead and set it down. There's opportunity in that. Let me explain really quick what happened. As my furnace was broken, I'm calling a million people going, how do I fix this? What's going on? We hired a team to come in or someone that knows this thing. They came in. They said it was X. I paid X. Then the next day it broke again. I was like, I paid you. Why is it not fixed? He comes back. Oh, it was the wrong thing we fixed, but don't worry about it. This is the next thing it's fixed, and it's 3 times as much as you already paid, but we're not going to give you the money back. It's good because you paid for the part, so no big deal, right? No, it is a big deal because I already paid you. Right? So this thing starts to take place, and it's like a 3-week-long process. And so I'm in the middle of trying to study for this specific series, and this disruption takes place. Amazing, huh? And so what happens is this. I'm sitting one night for 3 days. I didn't get any sleep because every couple hours, here's what's so unique. My house has a wood-burning stove in it. It's awesome. And so I'm going, okay, you know what? We can do this. We'll just use the wood-burning stove, just like in Oregon Trail, back in the day. We'll use these things. We'll fill it with wood. We'll light it on fire. No big deal. And so what ended up happening was this, is I'm getting up every couple hours in the middle of the night to put another log on the fire to make sure my kids are not cold, right? Make sure my wife is not cold. Any wives out there? My wife loves it to be 75 degrees in my house. I'm burning up. Any guys with me? You are just sweating and you're like, it's snowing, but it feels like summer. I don't know what's going on here, but it's happening, right? So we have the wood burning stove going on, and every couple hours, I'm literally for 3 days, I'm exhausted. And guess what? This was during my vacation time at the end of the year. And I'm just going like, what in the world, Lord? And one night as I'm sitting, I just got so upset. I was sitting by the fire. I'm like, I'm just going to lay right here next to the fire so I know if it goes out because I'm going to wake up cold. And I'm just going to keep doing this, right? And so 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting next to the fire. And literally, I don't know if it's why, I don't know if it was because I was just going crazy from lack of sleep, but I just start laughing. I just start laughing and chuckling to myself, just laughing. And here's what I'm thinking. I'm just going, Lord, I've responded horribly to this. And here's why I'm laughing, because I'm going, how horrible is it that I have a house that I can put my family in? How horrible is it that I have a wood burning stove so when my heater does break, I can actually have heat in my home? How horrible is it that my kids have sweaters and blankets to keep themselves warm at night? How horrible is it that I have a family, right? I'm thinking in my mind, yeah, my life's really terrible because my heater broke. Anyone with me? And the Lord checked me in that moment. And he said, really? You're going to start talking about disruption? And you're upset that something was disrupted in your house? You're living it. You're living it. How will you respond? How will you respond? And as I'm laughing, I'm sitting there, I just go, I get it. I get it. You wanted this to happen probably because you wanted to use it in the first week of the sermon. That's why. Because it's real. It's real, and it happens to all of us. And so as you held that up, I want you to see that there's opportunity. What was the opportunity for me? To check my attitude. It was an opportunity for me to grow. It was an opportunity for me to be thankful for every single thing that I have and not worry so much about this dumb furnace, but be thankful for everything else that God has given me. And not focus on that one thing, but go, Lord, you have provided this house that I live in. Lord, you have provided the car that we drive. Lord, you provided the job that I have to support my family. Stop saying that these things are bad, or stop looking at the disruption and going, oh my goodness, how can this happen? And start looking to what God has given you. And that's what he did for me. And I saw that opportunity rise within me. I said, Lord, thank you. Thank you for showing me this. Because it's hard and it's difficult to see in the midst of it. But I want to train us that as these disruptions come, how we respond to them. So the first question this morning is this: what does disruption do to me? Disruption can lead us in two different ways. It can lead us away from God, or it can lead us closer to God. It can lead us away from God or closer to God. Another way of putting it is, it can lead us towards sin, or it can lead us towards victory. And I'm telling you, church, I want more victories this year. Amen? We want more victories this year. We want to see God do amazing things. And so let's move forward in this and go, you know what, Lord? How do I see the disruption the right way? So let's look at the first point there. Disruption leading us away from God. As disruption takes place, here's what happens. We get angry because it's not what we had planned. Did I plan to have my furnace break at that moment in the coldest point of winter? No. I did not, but it happened, right? So we get angry because I didn't plan it out. It wasn't what I was thinking, or whatever that thing is that you held up. This thing gets in the way of what we want, and we get mad, and guess what happens? We then cast blame on, guess who? God. God, you all of a sudden just go, you know what? It's your fault, God. You did this. You broke my furnace. How could you do this? Right? That's what we do, because it's not what we planned. We go, my plan was to be hot all winter, and for this not to happen. But that's not what took place. And so we get angry, we get upset, we get bitter, and we cast blame on God. And as we blame him, guess what? Our hearts are now hardening towards Jesus. That's what happens. The more you cast blame, the more your heart gets harder and harder and harder towards God, when it should be doing the opposite of that. When it should be taking us towards Jesus so he could show us how we need to grow, and so we can see the opportunities that are in the midst of the disruption. And so as we talk about this, right, our hearts get hardened, and it leads to all kinds of issues. Open up your word to Mark chapter 3, or you can see it right there on the screen. We're going to look at this chapter really quick and move forward. In Mark chapter 3, starting in verse 1, it says this: Mark chapter 3, starting in verse 1. Jesus went into the synagogue again, and he noticed a man with a deformed hand. Since it was the Sabbath, Jesus' enemies watched him closely. Look what's taking place. It's the Sabbath, and Jesus brings this man, and so everyone around him is now staring at him because back then the Sabbath was absolutely holy. Nothing takes place on that day. And so look what Jesus does. I love this. Since it was a Sabbath, Jesus' enemies watched him closely. If he healed the man's hand, they planned to accuse him of working on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." I love that he does this. He knows he's getting ready to cause, guess what? Disruption. Massive disruption. And what does he do? You. Come over here, and every single one of you are going to see what's going to take place right now. And he's going to cause some disruption right now. So Jesus said to the man with the deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." Then he turned to his critics and asked, listen to this, "Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath? Or is it a day for doing evil?" Think about that. I bet everyone's mind is like the mind-blown emoji on your phone that just took place, right? It's mind-blowing. He says, "Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath, or is it a day for doing evil? Is this a day to save life or to destroy it?" I love when Jesus speaks. He caused massive disruption, as we're going to talk through that over the next weeks. But they wouldn't answer him. Look, they couldn't even answer him. He looked around at them angrily and was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. Then he said to the man, "Hold out your hand." So the man held out his hand, and it was restored. At once the Pharisees went away and met with the supporters of Herod to plot how to kill Jesus. Here's what's taking place. Jesus is causing disruption in the midst of what they think. They're thinking religiously, right? They're the people of that day. They're full of religion. They're thinking, "No, you can't do this on this day." And he's going, "What?" You're saying, "So what do we do? Good or evil? Your choice. What do you think?" And he brings out this man, and he does something to disrupt what they're thinking, and he heals him. And guess what happens? They are upset that a man just got healed. Are you kidding? They're upset about it. And here's what happens with us. We often see good as evil. And let me explain this. When the disruption takes place, we don't see it as a good thing, we see it as a bad thing. We see the disruption in our life and we see, this thing is absolutely horrible. God, how can you allow me to go through this? And he's going, "No, David, see the opportunity in it." And we want to run from it, just like this. Jesus is healing a man. He's healing somebody. He's healing him, and what do they say? They run to supporters to try and plot and kill Jesus. He's doing good. He's healing people. And they're going, "It's not the way we want, so let's kill him." And oftentimes, if we're honest, let's be honest, church. Is that you and I? Where disruption takes place in our life, we go, "This is absolutely, how can this happen?" And we cast the blame on God. But look what happened to their hearts. What does it say? As they didn't agree with it, as they were against it, it says that Jesus looked around at them angrily and was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. They didn't like what he was doing, so they were casting the blame. And guess what happened? Their hearts became hard. Oftentimes, this could be us. And this is what happens when our hearts get hardened. I'm going to give you a quote by John Piper. It says this, "As painful as his providence can be." So listen to that. As painful as his providence can be. We know as we go through life in 2019, there is some pain ahead. Let's be honest and let's talk about it. There is pain ahead. But as painful as providence can be, we should trust that he is good. We should trust that he is good, not get angry with him. That would be like getting angry at the surgeon who cuts us. Thinking about surgery, who cuts us. We're getting angry at him. It might be right if the surgeon slips and makes a mistake, but listen to this. But God never slips. Amen. He never makes a mistake. And so there's no reason to get angry. There's no reason to be, here's the thing. We're going to talk about this in the midst of these trials. Yes, can you have those feelings of hurt? Can you have those feelings of possibly depression or whatever it is? Yes, but can you also have joy? Absolutely. And we're going to look at this in 1 second. But as he's talking about this, he's saying, look, as painful as providence can be, as the Lord's providence can be, we should trust in him because he is that good. And he never makes a mistake. So when we talk about disruption, it can lead us away from God, but it also can lead us towards God. So disruption leading us towards God. As disruption takes place, it causes us to think about how much we need him. There's many times in life where that thing, whatever that thing is, happens. And your realization is this: I need Jesus in this moment, right? Those are those disruptions where you know, oh no, Lord, I know I need you. I can see this very clearly. I can see the opportunity in it that I absolutely need you through this because this is hard and difficult. I need your peace. I need your mercy. I need it all. I need your love. And so we see it that way. And that's the good thing, right? It's driving us towards Christ. We know we can't do these things on our own. We don't have the strength to, so we look towards him. But here's the thing, we have to be okay with the disruption because many times we actually need it. I know that's hard to hear, that we need the disruption to take place. I needed this furnace to break, as dumb as it sounds, right? I needed it to happen so I could realize my horrible response. And I can see in my heart, Lord, there's still sin in there. I need you to get this out. I need you to get this anger out. I need you to get these things out of my heart so that when things happen in the new year and things to come, I would respond better. I would respond with your heart. So our outlook of that disruption matters. How we view it matters, that there's opportunity in the midst of disruption. If you turn with me to 2 Corinthians chapter 6, we're going to pop through a couple different verses here. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, starting in verse 3. We're looking at Paul here. Paul speaking about personal hardship. He's speaking about personal disruption that's taking place in his own life. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, starting in verse 3, it says this: "We live in such a way that no one will stumble because of us, and no one will find fault with our ministry. In everything we do, we show that we are true ministers of God. We patiently endure troubles and hardships and calamities of every kind." Listen to his response to these things. "We have been beaten, but we've been put in prison. We've faced angry mobs. We worked to exhaustion. We endured sleepless nights, and we've gone without food. We prove ourselves by our purity, our understanding, our patience, our kindness, by the Holy Spirit within us, and by our sincere love. We faithfully preach the truth. God's power is working in us. We use the weapons of righteousness in the right hand for attack and the left hand for defense. We serve God whether people honor us or despise us, whether they slander us or praise us. We are honest, but they call us impostors. We are ignored even though we are well known. We live close to death, but we are still alive. We have been beaten, but we have not been killed." Listen to what he's saying. Talk about disruption. That's what he's speaking on. He's not just saying it, he's living it. He's saying this: we are honest, but they call us imposters. We're ignored, even though we're well known. We live close to death, but we're still alive. What an amazing statement. He's saying, I've been close to death, but I'm not looking at being close to death. I'm looking that I'm still alive. He's seeing the opportunities in the disruptions, and he's actually living it. As we display what Paul's been through over the next few weeks, it's astounding what this man has gone through. But here's the thing. You ready for this? He was just a man. That's it. A human. Are you human? Amen. So is Paul. So many times we look at these people and go, well, he's an apostle. He had all these things. He walked with Jesus, all this stuff. He was just a human. That's it. You know who the power came from? Jesus. The same power that lives in you today. Don't tell me you can't, because you can. Don't tell me you can't be the next Paul, because you can. He was just a human. And so we need to walk into this new year with that understanding. But look at this next part as he ends this in verse 10. Our hearts ache, but we always have joy. We are poor, but we give spiritual riches to others. We own nothing, but yet we have everything. Mind blown again. In this verse 10, it's amazing to see this, because a lot of times we often go through these things in our life, disruption, and people come alongside of us, and I don't think they mean harm, but they're going, Christian, as you're sad, or those things that take place, and they're like, you need to pray more, you need to read your Bible more, you need to do this more, you need more. And at times, I listen to those conversations, and I'm just like, Lord, Is it really that we have to do all these things more? Is that really what it is? Because that sounds religious to me. What I think is just getting on our knees and saying, Lord, I need you. Lord, be here with me. Lord, find people around me that can pray for me. Yeah, reading the word is great. We should do that more. We should do that every single day. But the point is more and more and more and more. It's not like we're going to spend 10 hours in the Bible every single day, right? That's hard to do. It's impossible. The point here is this. He's saying our heart aches, but we always have joy. Why? Because joy is found in Jesus. And yes, your heart can ache as you go through these hard times. Yes, your heart can ache as you go through troubles in 2019. But just as your heart is aching, you can have massive joy because of Jesus and what he's done in your life. It is possible. It is absolutely possible. What I struggle with is when I meet Christians today that are grumpy, that literally are Eeyores. They're literally Eeyores. Because here's the issue. Things take place in their life, disruption takes place, and they allow it to beat them and beat them and beat them and beat them. And they don't see the joy. They don't see the opportunity in all those things that they've gone through to realize this. Yes, you've been beaten. Yes, you've been beaten. Yes, you've been beaten. But have you ever thought how you can use that beating to share with somebody else when they're going through the beating? And you can use what you've been through in your life to share some hope and some joy with someone else who's going through it that doesn't know Christ. How we can have so much joy in the midst of a struggle. It's possible and it is real because his name is Jesus. And so we should get excited about those things, not be grumpy. Can we stop being grumpy? Can we just be excited about it? Be joyful about what Jesus did. He died for your sins. He died in the midst of you sinning. He died for you. That is something to be excited about. We should be encouraged by it. Not moping around. When someone meets another Christian, they're moping around. It's like, I don't want to go hang out where he hangs out. Why do I want to go there? People want to be excited about the gospel. They want to see your life and go, you know what? It's crazy that thing that just took place in your life was horrible, yet you're still smiling. Yet you're still excited. Yet you're still joyful. Yet you're still like, I want to see the kingdom growing because you're kingdom focused. I had a conversation with a close friend of mine recently. I was on the phone, and the Lord just prompted me to call this person. So I called him. The Lord just said, hey, encourage this person. So I did, and it was in fact the opposite direction, that he encouraged me. And here's what took place. This man is 12 feet tall in my eyes, and this is what happened. He went through something recently in the last couple of years. And as I'm talking to him about just his day, it was interesting. As he's at work, doing his normal day-to-day job, right? And it's so interesting as he's talking with someone in his work and this person starts asking questions about his life and asking all these things. And so my friend starts telling him a little bit about his story and what took place in the last couple years. And it's so amazing the response that takes place. As he's telling him what happened, the guy's like probably with his mouth open, like jaw dropping. Like, you went through all of those things? Because here's his response. How did you go through all of those things and yet I see you smile every day? I see so much happiness is the word he used. I see so much happiness in you. And I would have never thought that you would have ever gone through that in your entire life by the way you act today. I'm just smiling on the phone. He can't see me, but I'm smiling on the phone because I'm going like, yes. Because here's the next thing. He says this, I want what you have. The whole entire world is looking for hope. The whole entire world is looking for joy. They want what we have. His name is Jesus. And so for us, you can give a shout of praise. Not to me. You can give a shout of praise to him. That's what we should be doing, is causing disruption in that way. That people look to us, they go, wow. They see what we've gone through and they're walking away going, how do you have that joy? How do you have that happiness? And I love the response at the end of that because he's saying, I want that, right? He's going, it's all Jesus, man. All Jesus. And every day we have an opportunity like that to share the gospel just like that. That people look at us and they go, wow, it's crazy how you respond to things. It's crazy that you have joy in the midst of trials. It's crazy that you're happy all the time, though it's chaotic, right? Because we have the joy of the Lord living inside of us. Isn't that amazing, church? He gives it so freely. We should be excited. There's joy that comes from above. And I love it because that's so true. If you're taking notes, write this down. You're never more teachable than in the midst of disruption. I'll say that again. You're never more teachable than in the midst of a disruption. So as we have that disruption again, we may be angry about it, we may be upset. I'm saying, look at the opportunity. You're teachable in the midst of that disruption. You are teachable. Write this down too. Number one, God never wants you to stop growing. Do we believe that? God never wants us to stop growing. That's the absolute truth. So there is going to be times of disruption because that grows us. Number two, you grow most in the midst of a hardship and or change. You grow in the midst of a hardship and or change. It's the only way we're going to grow, church, is if we go through some hard times. If it's all rainbows and unicorns all the time, guess what? We're going to say, we don't need Jesus. Everything's great. But it's in the midst of the disruption that you realize the opportunity and that you desperately need Jesus. So you grow in those opportunities. Number three, your growth depends on your ability to embrace the disruption. Your growth depends on the ability to embrace the disruption. Again, number one, God never wants you to stop growing. Number two, you grow in the midst of hardship and or change. And number three, your growth depends on your ability to embrace the disruption. If we're willing to embrace it, I'm telling you, church, there's going to be massive growth in our lives, and there's going to be massive growth in our relationship with Jesus. We have to understand that at times we allow those things. We go, you know what, Lord, you know all things. You're good to me. You love me. I'm going to let it be. And I'm going to grow in the midst of this disruption. And you may be thinking right now, are there really opportunities? There absolutely is. There is many opportunities. The last part we'll look at is turn your Bibles to Acts 16. What we're going to look at here is Paul again being proof that no matter what takes place in your life, there's opportunities to be seen. Acts chapter 16, starting in verse 16 in a second. But before I read this, we need to be thinking about our year. We need to be thinking ahead that there is going to be disruptions that take place. There is going to be things in our life that we're not okay with, that we look at and we go, you know what, Lord, I don't like this. I don't like what's going on. But again, looking at our hearts and understanding, no, that's the best way that you're going to grow. I'm going to bring this up again. You're never more teachable than in the midst of a disruption. That's when you're teachable. Because guess what? That's when you're vulnerable. And you're accepting what Jesus is trying to speak into your life. You're accepting. You're all ears at that moment. Don't we love that? It's like when something happens where we're paying attention now. We weren't paying attention before, but disruption hits. And all of a sudden, I'm paying attention. When before that, maybe we should have just listened in the first place. But those things happen, right? You're never more teachable than in the midst of disruptions. Acts 16. Starting in verse 16. It says this. Now it happened, as we went to prayer, that a certain slave girl possessed with the spirit of divination met us, who brought her masters much profit by fortune telling. Look at this. So he's talking about this girl that's possessed. She's demon possessed. And it says, who brought her to her masters much profit by fortune telling. So this demon is using this girl. He's inside of this girl, possessed this girl, and she's speaking fortune. She's speaking futures, right, is what it sounds like. She's fortune telling. And these guys are making all kinds of money by it. And I love that Paul and Silas, they're together. I love that they go towards these things that are taking place, right? They're walking into the scenario when most of us would be running the opposite direction. Let's be fair, right? Let's be honest. We'll see someone that something like that's happening. We're like, we're out of here. I want nothing to do with this. Anyone? That would happen, right? You're scared. It's like, how do we handle this? Paul and Silas goes towards it. In verse 17, this girl followed Paul and us and cried out saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God, who proclaim to us the way of salvation. So really she's mocking them. She's pointing at them saying, look at these guys. Look at what they're doing. In verse 18, and this she did for many days, but Paul, greatly annoyed, listen to that, turned and said to the spirit, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And he came out that very hour. Look at that. Talk about disruption that's taking place. I love that it says this, but Paul greatly annoyed. So can we say this? Paul's human? Paul's human. Someone's trying to disrupt what he's trying to do. He's trying to proclaim the gospel. He's trying to talk about Jesus, and this possessed girl follows them all around, pointing her finger at him and mocking him. And for 3 days this took place, and finally he goes, man, I'm so annoyed with this woman. Can she stop? Right? And what does he do? He heals her. He heals her. The demon then comes out. Verse 19. But when her masters saw that their hope of profit was gone, look at where they're putting their hope. In profit, in money, in finances, in things. And guess what? All of those things will burn one day. All of those things will go away because hope is only found in Jesus. And it says their hope of profit was gone. They seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to the authorities. And they brought them to the magistrates, and they said to them, these men, being Jews, exceedingly trouble our city, and they teach customs which are not lawful to us or for us, being Romans, to receive or observe. So they're mad now. Why? They're not mad that they're preaching the gospel, obviously. What they're mad about is their prophet's gone. What they're mad about is the demon-possessed girl they've been using is now healed. And so now they can't make any more money. So what do? They're trying to cause disruption in their life, right? So they grab them, they take in front of the authorities, and they say, look, these guys are in the wrong. They're preaching about X. We don't believe X because we're Romans. They're Jews. Let's get them out of here. Let's do something about this. And so they drag them in front of all these people, and they start pointing the finger. And in verse 22, it says this. Then the multitude rose up together against them, and they tore off their clothes and commanded them to be beaten with rods. And when they had laid many stripes on them, listen to that, they did it. The verse before it says this, that they were going to hit them and beat them with rods. And the next verse says that's what took place. And when they had laid many stripes on them, that means they beat them. They threw them into prison, commanded the jailer to keep them securely. Having received such a charge, he put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. So what took place? They're preaching the gospel. They do amazing things by healing this woman, right? And then they beat them with rods because they say they're wrong, and they throw them in jail, and they collapse their feet, right? So they're sitting in jail, and now they're in prison. And in verse 25, oh, this is absolutely amazing. This is something incredible. In verse 25, it says this. But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. So I'm going to ask this question. Was that massive disruption that took place in their life right now? They were preaching the gospel, they get thrown in jail, and they say, you stay here. And so what do? They weren't upset, they weren't angry at God. What do they end up doing? They're praising and singing in the midst of being in prison. Wow. They're praising and singing hymns towards Jesus, and what does it say? Every prisoner in the prison is hearing them sing and praise their God and King. They see the opportunity that's there. And it doesn't end there. It does not end there. We're going to keep this going. They're excited about it. They're praising his name. All the prisoners are listening. Suddenly, in verse 26, there was a great earthquake, so that the foundation of the prison were shaken. And immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's chains were loosed. So not only this, they're praising Jesus' name. They're singing hymns to him. And guess what? God brings an earthquake right to that prison, and he blows the doors wide open. And here's what's crazy. You're thinking, oh, this is amazing. They're going to get out, right? They're going to run straight out that door, and they're going to get away because God came in and caused massive earthquakes to take place. And not only an earthquake to blow the doors off, it broke all of their chains. Talk about supernatural. But it doesn't end there as he continues on. 27. And the keeper of the prison, awakening from sleep and seeing the prison doors open, supposing the prisoners had fled, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself. He sees what took place, but here's what happened. What time was it when the doors blew off and all the chains broke? And what time is it when the prisoner or when the guard woke up? Because there's some time that took place in between this. So you're thinking Paul and Silas and everyone else is long gone. But here's the truth. They saw a different opportunity. They didn't see the doors. As he continues on, the keeper of the prison wakes up. He draws his sword about to kill himself because he knows what's going to happen if he says all the prisoners got out. So he's choosing in that moment to kill himself. But listen to verse 28. I love this. But Paul called with a loud voice saying this, do yourself no harm, for we are all here. And I'm thinking, Paul, what are you doing there? The doors blew off. Why aren't you running through the gates? Why not supposed to be in prison, but he saw another opportunity in the midst of that destruction as well. And as he continues in verse 28, but Paul called and said, do yourself no harm, for we're all here. I'm thinking, Paul, you're crazy. Verse 29, then he called for a light, ran in and fell down trembling before Paul and Silas. And he brought to them and said, sirs, what must I do to be saved? So they said, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved, you and your whole entire household. It's not done. Continue reading. Then they spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all who were in his house. And they took them the same hour that night and washed their stripes. That means they were baptized that night. And immediately, yes, amen, amen. And immediately he fell and all of his family were baptized. Now when he had brought them into his house, he set food before them. He's talking about the jailer. He brings them into his home. He sets food before them and he rejoiced, having believed in God with his whole entire household. That's opportunity. Paul saw it. He didn't run when the doors were wide open and the shackles were off. He saw the man that needed hope and he said, I'm going to stay right here until everyone in this prison is saved, until everyone in this prison in their household is baptized, because that is more important than the things that I want. It is more important than what I plan for my life is to see God faithful, is to see God move, is to see God do amazing things. So what I'm saying for 2019 church is this: let's cause disruption for the kingdom of God. Let's cause disruption for the kingdom. Let's see the opportunities lies ahead as Paul did. It's truly amazing when you look at it and he's saying this: I didn't see that opportunity there. I saw it in the man that desperately needed Christ. Yeah. He desperately needed Jesus. So I'm going to stay right here until that is finished, until that is done, until everyone in here is baptized for the sake of the kingdom of God. Church, can we do that this year? Can we see the opportunities in the midst of destruction? They were sitting in prison going, how could this be? But God is saying, look at the opportunity. Look at the opportunity for your growth. Look at the opportunity for those that are around you in the prison, that you can be a light in the darkness. That's what we're called to be, church. So oftentimes we don't want to go into the darkness. The Bible says, go into the darkness and shine light. You're a city on a hill. You're